at the other job hosting on the radio, and I'm looking through my phone, and Andrew Siciliano was on. I think his podcast is called The Bark Tank with Kevin Stefanski, and they talked about Kevin taking back play calling duties, and they talked about basically Kevin pulling the old offense off the shelf and presenting it to this new team that we will have in 2025. So I just want to let people know, man, as we was getting the show together, I tried to find the best quality video that I could. So the quality is not the best, but for content purposes, I'm going to play it. It's like 2 minutes long. Pay attention to this conversation between Andrew Siciliano and our head coach, Kevin Stefanski, about the play calling duties and what the Cleveland Browns offense will look like. And then me and Cecil will react to it. Check this out. Here we go.
You're taking the play calling back. Explain to me two things. Number one, why? And number two, why you felt the need to come out today and just end the suspense and say, guys, I'm doing this.
Just so you'd stop asking me the questions, Andrew, is really what it was. No, listen, and I say this and I mean this sincerely. There are things that are really, really important to playing good offense, and a lot of them have nothing to do with play calling. We have a lot of work to do, Tommy, myself, this offensive staff, in putting back an offense that we feel really good about, and that's going to be sound, and that's going to play to the strengths of our players. There's a lot to do. The play calling piece comes whenever our first game is in September, but I just felt like it's the right thing for us right now. I told the press today, and I mean this, I reserve the right to change my mind. We're still in January, but I feel like that's the right thing for the team right now.
Kevin, the natural assumption is because you're calling plays again, that this is going to be a return to the offense that we saw the first 4 years, the offense that went to the playoffs twice. And it's not just Tommy, and it's not just you calling plays. It's Mike Bloomgren, for example, your new offensive line coach. And look, go back to Stanford. I think they ran power 18 times in a row. This speaks to the old offense. Are we wrong by assuming that and connecting those dots?
Listen, I understand the question, and I understand when you say all that. We never want to just go backwards. We want to go forward. So this is not where you just plop a playbook down on the desk and say, hey, dust this off. That's not what we're about. We want to be forward thinking in everything we do. Obviously, add Mike Bloomgren with Tommy's thoughts. There are certain things that we believe in as coaches, but we also know this game's changing. There are so many things that other teams around the league are doing that we feel like fits us, and some of it we haven't done here in the past, and that's okay. That's part of evolution. That's part of adapting in this football game, and I think there's so much when you look around the league. There's so much that changes year to year, certainly 5 years to 5 years. I've told you this before. If you put tape on from 5 years ago, there are going to be things that stand out to you and say, wow, things were different. If you put tape on 10 years ago, there's going to be even more things. So the game's evolving. How they officiate the game is evolving. The players that are coming into this league are evolving. The play style has evolved. And it's not just at the quarterback position. It's in a bunch of different areas. So for us, we certainly want to have that same mindset as we put our offense together. This is the Cleveland Browns offense for the year 2025. And here are the things that we're doing because it fits our players. That's going to be what's most important.
I don't think I ever heard Kevin Stefanski talk like that. Audio courtesy, video courtesy to the Bark Tank podcast. Thoughts and reactions on that, my man?
I love it. I love it because so many times you hear about can this player fit in this coach's system? Can this player, can this lineman, can this linebacker, whatever the case may be, right? And one thing I love, two words, evolution and adapting, right? Evolution and adapting. And when times change, when you're offensive coordinator, he mentioned everything's going to change. Within 5 years, so much is going to change. How they call how the referees call the game, how offenses adapt and change, and what type of players coming in every single year. And when you hear that, that makes me excited. A couple reasons. One, if you're a good coach, you're going to find what your players do well and do that, period. What do they do well? What does your offensive line do well? Do they block the power scheme well? Do they block mid-zone well? Do they block outside zone well? What do they do well? and let's find ways to do that. And then as you're doing that and you're mastering that, then you can continue to teach and develop the things they don't do so well, so that you can have a counter to what teams, once they figure out what you do well, you have a counter to it, right? Mm-hmm. So I love hearing that. I also love hearing the cohesiveness. He talked about Mike. He talked about Tommy. Like, he talked about himself, like, all coming together and working on how can we make this the 2025 offense of the Cleveland Browns? Like, how can we make this special? What do we do well? What can we do? How can we adapt? How can we add some things we didn't do before, we didn't do in the past? And to me, this is the most vulnerable or like into his head that we've been able to have from Kevin Stefanski. Talking about this openly, talking about the offense. Like, he's going to be able to change some things. Of course, he likes some things a certain way. It's like Mike likes things a certain way. It's like Tommy probably likes things a certain way. But they're going to work together to create something we haven't always seen with Kevin Stefanski. So for me, I love what I heard, and I'm excited about what they're going to do when it comes to the draft, when it comes to this whole offseason, because it's really going to be tailored to what they talk about now, because now is the time where the coaches sit together and really pick out what they want to do and how they want it to look and different ideas they have with the players they got in the room, and then with the draft and the free agents with the players that will be in the room.
I'm not over-exaggerating when I say this, but to me, it sounds like this is the first time I can remember that Kevin Stefanski sounds like the man in charge. That Kevin Stefanski sounds like the head coach of this football team. This don't sound like Kevin Stefanski in the past. It don't sound like, he's tiptoeing around certain things. It sounds like he's the guy that has more control than he's ever had before. And I'll tell you a little something off the air that I heard last night about Kevin Stefanski. And just hearing that, it kind of confirmed that, right? This is a dude who is willing to be open-minded and willing to be innovative. And I think in our last episode of the Ultimate 216 show, what did we talk about? We talked about the Kevin Stefanski offense, right? And how it was adopted from Gary Kubiak, and how that system was adopted from Mike Shanahan, and how that system overall is just as old as you and I. And you look at the athletes and how the athletes have evolved from the time that you've played in the NFL until now, right? So when you think about how the athletes are forever evolving, how the game is forever evolving, how most of the rules are tailored towards the offense, and you just alluded to, due to injuries and other things, concussions and other things, how the game is officiated is even different. And so when you got a guy like Tommy Rees, who's 32 years old, right? Who played at Notre Dame, who's been around the collegiate game, right? Very familiar with the collegiate game. I think he brings in fresh ideas, and he can help Kevin Stefanski in ways that Kevin Stefanski can't help himself, right? You only know but so much. Kevin been here in the NFL for God knows how long now. He's been the head coach of this football team. This be his 5th year. And so when you look at that, he ain't really got time to be always hyper focused on what's going on over there. I think it was a reason, why he kept Tommy Rees in the building, right? I think a lot of people around the NFL started to look at Rees as this evolving NFL offensive mind, and he didn't want to lose that. And you can't blame the head coach for not wanting to lose that. And so to hear the inclusion with him, Bloom, and Stefanski, and how they're going to go about things, it is exciting. But, for us and the fans, and I'm interested to see some of the comments, we think we have an idea, or we had an idea anyway, of what Kevin Stefanski's offense looked like, right? 2 tight ends, play action, and, heavy run game. And we've based everything that we said about free agency and the draft based on what Kevin Stefanski's offense used to look like. Now, a lot of people was trying to marry Kirk Cousins to the Browns, remember, because he's Stefanski's guy. Is it safe to say, man, we really don't know what's what now? Because he just literally told you, we're focused on the 2025 Cleveland Browns offense. We ain't focused on what we did prior to Ken Dorsey's arrival. This is about to be totally different. So knowing that, we can't even safely say that Cousins is a guy because he's familiar with Stefanski in Minnesota. Well, Stefanski just told you, I ain't really focused on doing what I did in Minnesota no more. It's harder for me anyway to assess, okay, well, which direction are the Cleveland Browns trying to go at quarterback? Which direction are the Cleveland Browns trying to go at this position? Because based on that conversation, We don't even know what it's going to look like. We just know it's going to be different.
It's going to be different. I think it brings a sense of confidence for me from a fan perspective. It's like what he's done in the past, he's not stuck in it. He's willing to try new things. He's willing. I'm going to say this, and you mentioned it. This is a bold Kevin Stefanski. This is somebody we haven't seen before. You said this is the first time I've seen him feel like he's actually the head coach and calling the shots. This is a bold Kevin. Like, he's like, hey, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out swinging. I'm going to go out doing it my way. I'm going to go out doing things on the offensive side of the football that I think we should do. And I'm going to bring in other guys that can help me get there, right? Because he mentioned the game is evolving. It's about adapting to what's going on. And to me, I'll be honest with you, that tells me one thing. They're open, very open to the quarterbacks at number 2. And it may not be the top 2 guys that we talked about. It may be somebody else. It may be a quarterback at number 2, maybe a quarterback at 33, maybe a quarterback later on. I think they're very open to bringing in a guy. If you look at a Shador or a Cam, they're very open to that. But also bringing in a possible guy like Jalen Milroe, a possible guy like a Jackson Dart, a possible guy that can come in and compete and have a certain I think Tommy is there because he knows the college game and he knows what they're doing at that level. And he knows you've seen a lot more of the college game in the NFL. So if we do draft one of these guys, how can we put the guys I just mentioned, how can we put those guys in the best situation, as Kevin said in his interview, to succeed? How can we make that happen for these guys, right? Because you got to be innovative. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, how many times have they been under center? Like, you know what I mean? In the old Stefanski offense, you got to be under center. You got to be here, boom, get it, play action off of that. You got to be able to, you know what I mean? How often have they been?
Let me ask you a question. Let me stop you right there and ask you a question. Because you're closer to it than I am. But when you look at the game now, right, and you talk about quarterbacks that don't play under center, how many of these new age quarterbacks actually come from a system that is under center? Just off the top of your head.
If I had to give a percent, that play under center consistently, probably under 20%. I mean, you got to think about it. All the 7-on-7s that's out there, they're in the shotgun, they're back there, they're throwing. Like, these guys are playing at a young age, and they want to be able to see the field. And it's all about passing and spreading out and going horizontal and vertical. So I think it's under 20% that actually play. I coach high school ball. Like, literally, you don't see many teams under center. Like, out of the 14 games we played this year, maybe one team off the top of my head was under center, and that's at the high school level. So go to the college. Look what you see in the college level. It's not many times you see those guys under center. They're in a shotgun. So it's just a different type of feel. And I'm a firm, but I don't think there's nothing wrong with being under center or being in a shotgun. That's just what you want to do, how you want to go about your offense, and it's really structured on what that quarterback can or can't do. But it's just a different type of feel. Now, I love that because now you got Tommy, the younger side of things, right? You got Stefanski, who wants to still do his thing, right? So now you can mix that, and then you got Mike, who wants to run the football. He wants to tote that rock, which is what Kevin likes to do. And understandingly, you have to run the ball to be able to win football games, right? So I think it's a good mix right now, and I'm with you. It's going to be innovative. It's going to be different. I think they're going to be very open-minded. But the bold Kevin Stefanski, the bold Kevin is what I like. Was what I like so far this offseason.
He definitely echoed what Tommy Rees said in his opening presser about, we want to design an offense that caters to everyone, and running the football can't get lost. I mean, just look at the NFL this year, right? Like Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry, and you just look at the teams that's still alive in the playoffs right now.
Buffalo, James Cook.
Buffalo, like you have to be able to run the football, and if you can't run the football, you're really not getting too far. I thought it was eye-opening, and it makes sense now. How did the offseason prior, we seen running backs get paid at a rate that they hadn't gotten paid at over the last 5 or 6 years. And then you see the results of how this season played out. You know what I mean? It was much more balanced than what we had seen in the NFL the last couple of years. And I think, as times change, that pendulum swings back and forth from times. And you're starting to see the run game become more of a staple in the NFL offense. And this year at least, and I think it's going to be the same next year. It wasn't like that 2 or 3 seasons ago. It's almost like the running backs are back.
Yep. And I think a critical part, and again, I'm thinking about Tommy, who's 32. I'm thinking about Mike, who has tons of experience as an offensive line coach at Stanford, at Rice, or wherever he wants to be, head coach at Rice. And he wants to run the football. But you marry those guys because you just look at the guys playing today. The Redskins, yes, you got Brian, I forgot
Brian
his
Robinson.
name. Brian Robinson Jr., you got Austin Eckler. But a part of that big running game is Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, it is.
Right, a part of that run game is Jaden Daniels. So they run the ball extremely well. You can say, oh, no, think about that running game as a whole. Those three as a whole with three-headed monster. That's creativity. When you look at the Eagles, you got Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. Like, think about that. Jalen Hurts is a part of that running game. When you think about the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, James Cook, Ty Johnson, whoever else came in for Buffalo when guys were down, they ran the ball as a collective, right? So you have to be, yes, you have to run the football. And if you have a mobile guy, he has to be involved with the running game. The run game doesn't change. It may look different. You're still going to run the zones, the powers, the counters, all that stuff. It just may look different to the defense, and different guys are going to be toting the rock. So the run game is going to be extremely important.